Hi everyone, I'm Dale Smith, aka Journo Dale, and we're here to talk about Canadian politics. This last week, the Quebec National Assembly passed a bill in 12 minutes that purports to insert a clause into the 1867 Constitution that would make the oath to the King optional in the province of Quebec. It's blatantly unconstitutional. There are amending formulas for the Constitution, which they have completely ignored. But what I think is more interesting here is the potential effect that this is going to have down the road. Now, we got here because the MNAs for the Parti Québécois decided they did not want to swear an oath to the King, came up with a bunch of ridiculous excuses that don't actually apply in Canada, such as the fact that the King of England, which is not existent, is also the head of the Church of England, and therefore they couldn't, for a secular society, they couldn't swear to him for that reason, even though the King of Canada is not the head of the Church of England. They are separate legal and organizational entities. The list goes on. The excuses were excuses. Nevertheless, all of the other parties in the Quebec legislature went along with this, with the Liberals giving some pro forma, we should have consulted more to see that this was constitutional, before they also agreed to pass this in 12 minutes. But what the effect that this could have could mean that in the future, if nobody challenges this particular law and it remains on the books, and we have a succession of Quebec MNAs who don't swear their oath to the King, which is a requirement of the Constitution for everyone who holds office in this country, that future laws could be declared invalid. And there is precedent for this out of Manitoba. The Manitoba legislature stopped passing laws in both official languages at some point. And when this was challenged at the Supreme Court of Canada, the Supreme Court said that any law on the books which was not passed in both languages is invalid. It is not in force, and is no longer really existent. They did, however, give a suspended declaration that said, we will temporarily keep these on the books for the sake of continuity and rule of law, so long as you get to work on passing translated versions, so that both are in the statute books. And it took a few years, but it got there. And we could find ourselves in a situation like this in Quebec in a few years if this persists. Now, there's only, I think, 3 MNAs right now for whom this was an issue, who did not, refuse to swear the oath. And when they return in January, they will try and enter the legislature again without having sworn, because they've got this completely invalid bill that's been passed. And also, incidentally, which the Lieutenant Governor of Quebec put out a declaration that said, even though he's signing this, it's not his job to determine constitutionality, it's the court's job. So he's basically recognizing that this bill is unconstitutional, but just saying that it's not his job to stop it. It's up to the courts. So we've got yet another indication that this law is not valid and it's not constitutional. And what this means is that when this does get challenged, or when future Quebec laws get challenged, that these MNAs who have not sworn the oath have voted on, that could render that legislation null, or not in force and effect, that kind of thing, based on the kind of precedent out of Manitoba. And that could be a really big problem for Quebec going forward. It may not happen for another parliament or two, because there's only 3 in this one, and unless there are any nail biters where those 3 votes count, are the difference. That's the possibility. Given the size of François Legault's majority, I don't think that's going to be the issue for the immediate future, but it's certainly something that they should have actually thought about before they passed this bill in 12 minutes. So we've got ourselves a situation. We have Quebec in particular passing bills which purport to amend the 1867 Constitution. This is the second time they've done that now. They also tried that with their particular language laws, inserting another clause into the Constitution which basically says Quebec is a French-speaking nation. The federal government opted not to challenge that for some reason. My read of the situation was they felt it's kind of just a useless declaration, so they didn't want to expend the political capital, even though they should be upholding the Constitution, kind of a thing. But it also hasn't been challenged yet. So we've got a second instance of this happening now. And someone's going to have to start challenging this before other provinces decide to start inserting their own clauses into the 1867 Constitution in a similar manner, outside of the proper amending formula. And we're going to get a bunch of other ridiculous and unconstitutional declarations being passed into it, which is going to cause more problems down the road. So we really need someone to start challenging these particular laws, and for the Supreme Court to basically say, no, there is an amending formula. This is not how this works. And start challenging the stuff before we go too far down this road and things start getting dicey, and future laws have to be, declared not in force and effect because they were improperly passed. So we should start getting on that as soon as possible. That's everything for this week. Join us again next week for some more Canadian politics. I'm Dale Smith. That's at journo_Dale on Twitter. And don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Thanks, everyone.